Before Trump gutted the White House, Erdogan built his White Palace. As long as there's been human civilization, there have been leaders with vanity projects. Military honor guards stand outside the main building of the AK Saray, or the White Palace, in Ankara, Turkey, in 2014. Buyurunuz Bilisay/AP. To many onlookers, the symbolism felt overwhelming. The rapid demolition of the east wing of the White House last week to make way for a planned giant ballroom stunned the press corps, politicians, and conservationists, who had taken to heart President Donald Trump's earlier insistence that his desired construction would not interfere with the original structure. But less than a year into a second term shaped by his ability to break things, Trump had taken a jackhammer to the literal edifice of the U.S. presidency in a desire to build something more concretely in his own image. Get concise answers to your questions. Try Ask the Post AI. As the Washington Post detailed, the plans for the project envision a large neoclassical structure rising from where the East Wing once stood, replete with a gold filigreed audience hall capable of accommodating 1,000 attendees, as well as new offices and suites for esteemed White House guests. The building's footprint would be almost double that of the 55,000 square foot main section of the White House itself, to which it would be connected by an eye-catching glass bridge. Renovations of public offices and official residences are par for the course in countries everywhere, and the White House has gone through myriad refurbishments and expansions in its more than 22 decades-long history. Trump officials say the ensuing controversy about the East Wing teardown is manufactured outrage. Trump has already embarked on a striking overhaul of the White House, shifting its aesthetic to be more in line with the gaudy, gilded displays of his private properties. The president's critics point to the lack of consultation about the move, the disregard for historical conservation, the opacity in the process, and the obvious ethical questions that surround the corporate donations funding the construction. Through it all, they see the figure of Trump. Follow Trump's second term. Follow. It is the people's house. It doesn't belong to him, Representative Chelly Pingree, Democrat Maine, told my colleagues, calling on Republicans in charge of Congress to speak up. If Barack Obama or Joe Biden had started taking a backhoe to the White House, they would have had a heart attack. Demolition continues on the East Wing of the White House on Thursday. Matt McLean/The Washington Post. 11 years ago, one of Trump's kindred spirits unveiled a far more dramatic update to his nation's capital. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan had already held power as prime minister for more than a decade, and wanted to cement his political legacy with a new presidential palace in Ankara that reflected his rule. The Kankaya mansion in downtown Ankara had been the abode of every Turkish president since the founding of the republic in 1923, but was no longer fit for purpose, at least, in Erdogan's mind. So a vast complex was erected on a forested hilltop in the city's outskirts. The AK Saray, or White Palace, dwarfs the White House in scale, with 50 times the floor space of latter. The palace was billed as an abode with 1,100 rooms, both ornate and ultramodern, an imposing pile of giant marble columns, high-tech underground facilities, and a mosque that could accommodate thousands of worshippers. Its architectural style was a mishmash, borrowing on themes from Turkey's Ottoman past but also, as one critic saw it, the brutal gestures of early 20th century fascism. The construction cost of at least $615 million was double the initial estimate, and Erdogan and his allies disregarded legal attempts to stop the project's destruction of protected land. A year prior, battles in Istanbul over the government's plan to bulldoze a green space in the heart of the city morphed into a sprawling protest movement against Erdogan's perceived authoritarian drift. The Turkish leader withstood the unrest, which preceded his switch from the role of prime minister to president, and his strategy to revamp the country's constitution and tighten his grip through a strong executive presidency. Erdogan's opponents already saw the complex as the embodiment of a worrisome political order. One opposition figure, incensed by the expense, scoffed at the time that the new palace made Britain's Queen Elizabeth II look poor and Russia's Kremlin palace look like an outhouse. Erdogan was unmoved. The new Turkey should assert itself with something new, he told reporters then. The presidential office has been arranged in a very special way. We have paid particular attention to this. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan left, and Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson during a welcome ceremony at the presidential palace in Ankara, Turkey, in 2022. Boranozbilisai/AP. As long as there's been human civilization, there have been leaders with vanity projects. But those projects often become symbols of the status quo. Asli Aydin Tazbaz, a Turkey scholar and fellow at the Brookings Institution, said Trump's gutting of the East Wing is unnervingly similar to Erdogan's presidential makeover. That marked a deliberate break with how Turkey had been governed for decades, and signaled a consolidation of power. In both cases, the connection between size and power is the key, she told me. By constructing something grand and imposing, Erdogan signaled the birth of a new era, one in which Turkey's ascendance was fused with his personal brand. Personal grandeur became a vehicle for state power. It was intertwined. Washington Post art and architecture critic Philip Kennicott weighed what Trump was trying to message through his project. He is the master builder, the developer who can cut through red tape. That image, whether deserved or not, is why many people voted for him. But to shred precedent is simply to set new precedents, he wrote. And the precedent he is setting is that history doesn't matter, laws, procedures, and customs are irrelevant, and there is no role for collaboration, transparency, and review in the construction of new buildings, Kennicott concluded. Buildings are gifts to the people from leaders who are infallible, not the organic expression of civic values and ideals. Part of the East Wing of the White House is demolished by work crews during construction to build a new ballroom on Tuesday. Salwan George/The Washington Post. In the case of Turkey, the decade since the unveiling of the AK Saray has seen Erdogan cement his rule and legacy. He has outmaneuvered political opponents either through elections where the playing field was never level or sheer repression, with arrests and detentions of prominent lawmakers and potential challengers. Trump, ever the admirer of strongmen, has heaped praise upon Erdogan multiple times. Even as the latter was locking up the mayor of Istanbul, arguably his greatest electoral threat, on charges widely seen as trumped up, the U.S. president was proffering White House invitations to Erdogan while dismantling democracy-promoting agencies at home. At a joint Oval Office appearance in late September, Trump smiled at Erdogan and suggested he knows about rigged elections better than anybody. Trump, who still believes he won the 2020 election that he lost, did not seem to mean it as a criticism. Sign up to receive Worldview, a free, thrice-a-week email newsletter from the international desk of The Washington Post.